The crystalline dome of Research Station Kepler 442b hummed with the soft whir of life support systems, but Eva heard none of it. She was deep in the kind of sleep that only came after 72 hours of continuous work, the kind that bypassed dreams entirely and plunged straight into oblivion. Her morning alarm had been chirping for 15 minutes, a persistent electronic bird that she'd unconsciously silenced 3 times already. The 4th time it attempted to rouse her, Eva's hand shot out with the precision of a trained sniper and slapped the device into blessed silence without her conscious mind ever engaging. In the observation lab down the corridor, Louis stared at his monitoring screen with growing concern. Eva's biosigns showed she was still in deep REM sleep, and her shift had officially started 20 minutes ago. This wasn't like her. Eva Chen was the most punctual xenobiologist he'd ever worked with, a woman who treated tardiness like a personal moral failing. "Eva, you reading me?" Louis spoke into the comm system, his voice carrying through the station's internal network. Static answered him. He tried again. Nothing. Then the proximity alarms began to wail. Louis's blood turned to ice. The enclosure. He'd left the secondary gate unlocked while running diagnostic tests. His fingers flew across the control panel, pulling up the security feeds. What he saw made his heart stop, 3 of them. The cubs they'd been studying for the past 6 months had somehow triggered the door mechanism. They were loose in the residential section, and they were heading straight for Eva's quarters. The Xylarans weren't supposed to be intelligent, at least not according to any of the initial surveys. They looked like a cross between Earth's extinct dire wolves and something that belonged in a fever dream. 6-legged, covered in bioluminescent fur that shifted colors with their moods, and equipped with sensory whiskers that could detect electromagnetic fields. The adult specimens were apex predators, capable of taking down prey 3 times their size. But these were cubs, barely 4 months old by station time. Eva had named them against protocol: Cosmos, Nova, and Pulsar. She'd spent hundreds of hours observing them, documenting their behaviors, advocating for their protection when the mining company wanted to clear their habitat. Louis sprinted through the corridors, his magnetic boots clanging against the metal flooring. He could hear them now, the soft chirping sounds the cubs made when they were curious or uncertain. They'd learned to associate that sound with Eva. She was the one who fed them, who sat outside their enclosure for hours, who spoke to them in that gentle voice she reserved for vulnerable things. He rounded the corner to find all 3 cubs sitting outside Eva's door, their bioluminescent fur pulsing in synchronized patterns of soft blue and green, colors they displayed when seeking comfort or connection. Cosmos, the largest of the 3, was pawing at the door panel, her 6 legs giving her an almost spider-like grace. "Easy," Louis whispered, keeping his voice low and non-threatening. "Easy there." Nova's head swiveled toward him, her whiskers twitching as she analyzed his electromagnetic signature. The cubs had learned to distinguish between different humans by their unique bioelectric fields. Louis wasn't the one they wanted. Cosmos succeeded in triggering the door sensor. The panel slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, Eva continued to sleep, oblivious to the minor security breach currently padding into her quarters. The cubs moved with surprising stealth for creatures their size, their paws making almost no sound against the floor. They'd been in human spaces before, always under supervision, always separated by transparent aluminum barriers. This was different. This was Eva's den, filled with her scent, her belongings, her presence. Cosmos approached the bed first, her bioluminescent fur shifting to a warm amber, the color of contentment and trust. She raised one massive paw and gently placed it on Eva's shoulder. Eva's eyes snapped open. For a moment, she didn't process what she was seeing. Her sleep-addled brain registered warmth, weight, and a soft glow. Then her scientific training kicked in, and she realized she was staring directly into the face of a juvenile Xylaran predator with no barrier between them. She should have been terrified. Every protocol demanded she freeze, avoid eye contact, and call for backup. Instead, Eva found herself smiling. "Hey, Cosmos," she whispered, her voice rough with sleep. "How did you escape this time?" The cub chirped, a sound of pure joy. Nova and Pulsar emerged from behind their bolder sibling, their fur pulsing in excited patterns of yellow and green. They'd come to wake their human. She'd missed the artificial alarm, so they'd provided a natural one. Luis appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath, expecting to find a disaster. What he saw instead made him stop and reach for his recording device. Ava was sitting up in bed, surrounded by 3 alien predators, each one pressing close to her as if she were part of their pack. She was laughing, actually laughing, as Pulsar tried to climb into her lap despite being far too large for such an endeavor. "I can explain," Eva said, noticing Luis. But her smile didn't fade. "Please do," Luis replied, though he was grinning too. "Because I just watched 3 supposedly non-sapient creatures figure out door mechanics, navigate a space station, and apparently decide you needed a wake-up call." Eva scratched behind Cosmos's auditory receptors, a spot the cub particularly loved. "They're more intelligent than we thought. I've been documenting tool use, problem-solving, and what appears to be empathetic behavior. They've been watching the door mechanisms every time we enter and exit. They learned. They came for you specifically," Luis observed, his scientific curiosity overriding his initial panic. "Nova, come here, girl." The cub glanced at him but didn't move from Eva's side. "We've been operating under the assumption that they're non-sapient because they don't have language as we define it," Eva continued, her voice taking on the passionate tone she used when she was onto something important. "But look at this coordination. Look at their intent. They knew I wasn't awake. They knew where to find me. They wanted to wake me." Cosmos chirped again and pressed her massive head against Eva's chest. The gesture was unmistakable. Affection, trust, concern. "Humans have always had a strange gift," Luis said softly, recording every second of the interaction. "We see intelligence in others before we can prove it. We form bonds that logic says we shouldn't. We extend compassion to creatures that could kill us." "Is that a criticism?" Ava asked, though her attention remained on the cubs. "No," Luis replied. "It's what makes us human. It's what makes us explorers instead of just exploiters. These cubs are supposed to be wildlife, but you saw them as people. And maybe that's why they saw you the same way." Ava finally looked up at her colleague, her expression serious despite the absurdity of the situation. "We need to revise the classification. We need to recommend protected sentient status for the Xylarans. We can't let the mining operation proceed." "Agreed," Luis said immediately. "But first we need to figure out how to explain to Director Huang why 3 supposedly contained specimens are currently having a cuddle session with our lead xenobiologist, Nova." Chose that moment to flop onto Eva's bed with all the grace of a puppy, her bioluminescent fur blazing bright pink, the color they'd learned to associate with play. Pulsar followed suit, and within seconds Eva's carefully made military-style bed was a chaotic mess of human and alien limbs. "I missed my alarm," Eva said, as if that explained everything. "You did," Luis confirmed, unable to stop smiling. "Good thing you had backup later." When the incident report was filed and the cubs were safely returned to a newly reinforced enclosure, with a promise that Ava would visit within the hour, Luis sat in the observation lab reviewing the footage. He watched the moment Cosmos placed her paw on Eva's shoulder, the gentleness of it, the clear intent. The galaxy was vast and filled with wonders, but humanity's greatest contribution to it wasn't their technology or their weapons or even their stubborn refusal to quit. It was this: the ability to see a person in alien eyes, to extend a hand in friendship across the void of biology and evolution, to wake up surrounded by predators and smile. Eva had missed her alarm. But in doing so, she'd proven something far more important than punctuality. She'd proven that compassion could bridge the gap between species, that trust could be earned even without shared language, and that sometimes the most significant scientific discoveries came not from observation at a distance, but from connection up close. The cubs had woken her with a paw on the shoulder. In return, Ava would make sure humanity woke up to what the Xylarans really were. Not wildlife to be cleared for mineral rights, but people deserving protection and respect. It was very human of her. And that, Luis thought as he compiled his supporting data for the sentient status petition, was exactly what the universe needed more of.